Welcome to the Social Media Breakfast of Houston. Give me some noise, those of you in the room. I need your energy today. I'm so grateful to be here today with all of you, and thank you for making your way out here. And those of you who are watching online, thank you for joining us. I'm really excited about today's guests because I think podcasting is something that everybody is talking about right now. I remember when I first started blogging, that was the thing. And then we got to social media, and then we were all tweeting, and then we all had our Instagram, now short video. But right now, truly podcasting is one of the most powerful ways to connect with people in the current environment that we are in at this moment. It's really interesting to me that we've gone from wanting just short little clips, but people will watch a podcast for hours. So I'm looking really forward to talking to Sarah and Ray because they have done a lot of this for clients. They've helped their clients do it, and they also have their own podcast, Owned and Earned. I got to be on that podcast. That was so cool. Anyway, so starting out, I just want to tell you who these lovelies next to me are. Sarah Smith and Ray Smith are the co-founders of Speakerbox Media, Texas's first full-service podcast agency and studio. So they have a studio here in town where they help executives and brands build authority through video podcasting. They have 15 plus years of a combined experience in content strategy, multimedia production, digital marketing. I mean, they're great. That's all there is. They have a lot of experience. They've worked with Fortune 500 companies, high-grade startups, and venture-backed firms to develop content ecosystems that drive influence. And that, my friends, is really what's going on right now, is we need to have an influence, right? And that's really our voice. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's such a timely conversation as, podcasting is getting more popular. People are trying to figure out, how do I do this? How do I use this thing? But also, how do I use it to build brand or build my business? So we're thankful to be here.
Yeah. And you do a lot of the marketing around all of these podcasts and things. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Your role.
Yeah. So I sit, in the business development side of both my business, but also as a strategist for clients. So we're talking about this not as just, hey, this is a awareness piece of, strategy that you can use, but how does this actually drive business development results for you? And so that involves obviously the strategy with how you distribute it. It involves the strategy with who you bring on your show and the format and the look, sound, and feel. So all of those together come up with, the base layer for what essentially is your audio and video brand online.
Yeah. And so that is really interesting. And of course, we sitting in this room, not many of us are probably Fortune 500 companies. So I want to make sure we get there. Do you have to be a Fortune 500 company to be really successful with podcasting?
Absolutely not. We stay in B2B because that is our zone of genius, right? But when it comes to building brand, really what I think everyone needs to think about is within my business and within my brand, what is the type of owned media that I'm building? So right now we talk about social media and content, right? But that's earned media, and those are platforms that you don't own. So as a business owner, what you want to be thinking about in this space is, how do I build owned media, content that I own, an email list that I own, a community that I own, whether that's text-based or not. But you want to be using your earned platforms or rented platforms to drive back to an owned source, like your website or your content ecosystem. So you don't need to be a Fortune 500 company. Everyone should be doing this because that is how you essentially start to build your own authority. A lot of people wait and they say, well, I want the Forbes feature, or I want this feature. You're waiting for someone to give you permission to come on their platform. And the reality is, as a business owner and as a brand, you need to be building your own platform. That will attract those other opportunities.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. Whenever you work with executives, why do they come to you? A lot of executives are wanting podcasts. Why?
Honestly, because they just watched Diary of a CEO, or and they see themselves and they say, oh, I can do that, or they see their competitors doing it. Those are the top two, honestly. And then they get to the strategic part of kind of how do I make this work economically for my company?
Right. And so economically, glad you said something about that. So there's a lot of ways to have a podcast. So could we put some definitions down. Like, what is a podcast right now? Like, what encompasses podcasting?
Yeah, so for us, we've really watched that definition shift. When we started our company, it was largely still only audio distribution. And you even had bloggers saying, that's just audio blogging. We've been doing that forever, right? So in media, it's all just kind of shifting. And so what we think of podcasting as is vodcasting, so video podcasting. So when you frame it from that point of view, what you say, this right now is a live stream, but this is a video cast. So think about audio casting and video casting. That essentially, anytime you're distributing something widely over the internet in a multimedia format, that is kind of what podcasting has become. Now, I know they're going to come for me in the comments. It is an audio podcast. It's only a podcast if it's audio. That is changing. That changed with the entrance of YouTube and major video players. It changed with generations and how learning and discovery has changed on platforms, and therefore your business strategy had to change. So a podcast isn't just audio. It can be audio and video, but the main thing is really just thinking about who you're casting to and why. Why did this happen? Why are we here? Why is this so popular? It's popular because of the decentralization of media. Before, there was only a select few groups, networks, etc., who had access to be able to cast over the internet now. But now with YouTube and these other platforms available to everybody, now it's democratized. Anyone can do that. Anyone can build an audience. That's where the opportunity is. And that's why you're seeing everyone jump onto that, because there's obviously business results, there's advertisement, there's different ways that this can be monetized and utilized for your business.
I really appreciate you said that. So talking about that, maybe Ray, you can cover this. What are all the different formats that you can do a podcast in? Let's talk about that. Like, just roll it up.
Oh man, this could be a podcast.
Okay, all right. Well, we are.
I can make a podcast out of
this, right?
anything. I could turn a podcast. Anytime you're speaking, having a conversation, it could be a solo cast, just you and a camera. It could be some of the more popular things that even we're seeing now are what we would call a roundtable conversation. I think that's one of the most powerful things you can do as far as if you want to do a podcast, but repurpose the content, because you have several different people adding to that conversation. And then I would say webinars are kind of going more podcast focused. A lot of our clients are shifting from a post-production podcast to more of like a live formatted podcast where they don't have to do a lot of post-production and maybe they're good on camera. So those are, I would say, top 4.
Yeah, I definitely love the last one. I love the live stream portion of it for that exact reason, because I like the actual editing part, like, scares the heck out of me. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. But the editing is, I think, are a big part. So it feels like there's just so many pieces to a podcast. So I think maybe the best way to do this is to walk through it from the beginning to the end. So like, I come to you and I say, hey, Ray and Sarah, I'm thinking about putting on a podcast because I want to, whatever. I just published a book, or I am the executive of a big company, or I have my own little small nonprofit that I want to get my message out across to everybody. What would you do first when I came to you with that?
Yeah, the first step is your launch strategy, right? So thinking strategically about who you're talking to and why. What is the result you're looking to gain, where this lives, where it's going to be distributed? How is this an extension of your brand? Meaning, what does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? What is your brand voice across this medium? And so it's really kind of diving into the initial launch phase. So sitting down, who am I talking to and why? What results do I want to gain? And what does this look, sound, and feel like in an MVP format? So this is where a lot of people get hung up. They get hung up on the artwork, they get hung up on this piece, and then they never launch. So I really like to throw in there this MVP, your minimally viable podcast, okay? The first version, V1 of what this could look like. Still approach it with a strategic lens, but just get those basic questions answered and develop a window. Okay, I'm going to do this consistently 2 times a month for 3 months. That's going to be my test window. If I've done this for 3 months, I already won. Approaching it with that mindset allows you to at least get off of the ground and start testing and getting feedback. That's the biggest opportunity here when it comes to launching and actually executing. Is you're supposed to be talking to humans. There's humans on the other side of this, and you're supposed to be getting feedback and cultivating audience and conversation. And how can you do that if you get stuck here and never get it out? So the most important thing is to, after you've kind of ideated through that, is to get through that actual launch and go into what we call pre-production. So pre-production is the planning stage. What are we talking about? What episodes? What's the conversation? What's the questions? Are we guesting anyone on here, and why? And then actually planning out what we call a media day. So a lot of clients come to us and we'll batch content. Why? Easy. Resources, time, all of that. So basically planning out a day or slating a day in your schedule where you're going to consistently get this done. If you don't do that, it's not likely it's going to continue. So that pre-production process of planning out your episodes and planning out your media day to actually make sure that you're able to hit it. And then we go into what I think most people think about podcasting: production, actually recording, and then the post-production side of it.
Really good. So that being said, you know, you have a beautiful studio. I've been in it. That's awesome. But a lot of people are like, well, I just need to start with, you know, what's the minimum viable thing I can start with as just me, a solopreneur at home? What equipment do I need, Ray?
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of like the minimal viable podcast, the MVP. So when it comes to equipment, where you can start, honestly, is just like you would record a Zoom call, like the same type of equipment. I encourage people to actually start there and get your demo kind of podcast done, and don't really dive too much into the technology beyond what you're comfortable with. Because the worst thing you can do is, let's just say you have a guest podcast and you bring on a guest and the experience is bad and you don't capture the content, then I mean, it kind of ruins a relationship. So I would start there. Another great place to start is, you know, hiring like an audio engineer as like a consultant, or just getting a consultant first, because there's so many variations of gear and cameras that fit different scenarios that even challenge me now, just because, I mean, you got to think about lights, camera, everything, audio. So there's a bunch of different factors that would determine which type of gear you would get. But if you do your minimum viable podcast and you determine, hey, this is where I want to go, the next step I would say is like getting someone that knows what they're doing to consult you on the right gear. So
no, I agree. I agree completely with that. And I have to give a hat tip to my team, because Winter here, which is with us, I was just talking to him beforehand about the lights set up in this room. One thing I never really would have ever done is like tilt the lights up and feather the light the way he's doing this. The people that are in the room, if you see this, this is a huge tip because it was something I didn't even know existed. And so I wouldn't have known that if Winter wasn't on board to help us with this setup.
Yeah, like they're doing it perfect, because those lights they're smaller, so you want to bounce them onto a wider source, because what we're trying to do is soften the light as it hits our face, right? So if that light was pointed directly at us, we'll look like a deer in headlights right now, right?
And it would be in my glasses, you know?
Yeah, so some people would buy these lights because they saw a YouTuber with them, and then they would put those in, like, wait, I don't look like the YouTuber. And it's so many different scenarios that determine how you're going to position the light and the light you're going to buy.
Yeah. So funny story. My first light that I bought was a ring light, you know, because everybody said you should have a ring light. And of course I wear glasses. And so I would stand in front of the ring light, and there'd be this like little circle in both of my glasses. I'm like, this is like terrible. Like, this is not working. And I can't see without them. So I'm like, okay, I have to wear, and I'm terrible with contacts. You have tried that. So I was like, what do I do here? Well, I gave that ring light away to a friend of mine, because I was like, I just can't use this ring light. So buying equipment before you're ready and know what you need is an expensive mistake as well. I gave them to a friend of mine who used it for their family reunion pictures.
Repurposed.
Yeah, repurposed. But my point is that yes, you need to have an idea of what equipment you need in advance. Also audio. What is the most inexpensive way? I do believe audio is, I don't know. For me, audio is probably one of the most important things.
It's the room, it's the environment. You can get a mic that's $100 and make it sound like a mic that's $1,000.
The Samsung or what?
Yeah,
Give me one. Give me an idea.
Say what we use, and that's what I'm going to stand behind. Is the Electro Voice RE20.
Electra. How do you spell that?
Ooh, Electro, ELE.
Electro.
Yeah,
EL.
CTRO.
CTRO voice. Could somebody type that out? That would be you. 20.
Yeah, RE20.
RE20. Electro RE20. Okay, we've said it a lot, and we'll put it in the chat. But yeah, so and how much would that might cost?
About $400 to $500.
So that's expensive.
Yeah. Now I'll give you a little hack here. Audio equipment is the easiest thing to finance. You zero interest, no credit check type of financing. It's kind of how we got started. So when I was a kid mowing yards, like I had like $500, $1,000 worth of gear, like easy in my room just from financing it. So zounds.com, I recommend ZZOUNDS.com. So that's a great place to start because they also give you, I think, a 30 to 90-day money back kind of guarantee. So you can test the equipment out and
nice.
They're happy to take it back. So if, let's just say you spend let's say $1,200 on some gear, you're paying $100 a month for that gear until you pay it off. So you get all of the gear and you get the right gear the first time without paying all of the upfront costs for that gear. So ZZ Sounds, been using it since I was a kid.
ZZ Sounds. Okay, so we're all going to go into debt here. Awesome. Yeah, and I mean, you're absolutely right. I use a mic on my desk, and it doesn't. They don't make it anymore. It was the Ars Technica mic. There's another one, Samson, I think it's called, that works pretty well, honestly, on your desktop. So there are other ways to go about it, but I do love that because if you're going to have a podcast, but if you just want to start, just start.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a USB mic. I don't know what the model is, but there is a USB mic I think that you recommend too often. It's like it's a
AT2020.
AT2020
is about $150.
There you go. AT2020. So that's a good start. And you can get that on Amazon, I know.
Yeah.
So that's another way to go too. So AT2020 is good. It's a cheaper mic. And honestly, the mic I have, I had a podcast for 200 episodes, and my co-host, Malice Sklar, had the most expensive mic, and I had my mic, but with a really good audio engineer on the other end, we sounded exactly the same. So it was good.
I think just one more thing to kind of add on there is I did talk about the room treatment. So you do want to treat 50% of your room with some type of sound treatment, like, so this is 50% of the treatment. We have, drop ceiling here. That's kind of mitigating the reverb, or what we would call echo in the room. And then the floor is doing the same thing. So if I came into this room, I might put up a few panels, but not much. But you want a 50, I would even say 60% to be more on the safer side, because you can over isolate the room with panels and things like that. So
yeah, and in my room, I do podcasting out of my office, and it's got a carpeted floor and then bookcases, like full of books, because that is actually basically the same too. So podcast with a bookcase behind you, that's really, really good. It absorbs the sound really nicely.
There's also a joke like in the podcasting space that like if you've never recorded in a closet, are you even a real podcaster? Because like all of the clothes around you are such a great barrier, and then most of the time you have a door or a wall behind you. So it's really actually a good little isolation chamber if you're doing audio only. Obviously, you don't want a video in your closet, but
well, I mean, it could be interesting. Interesting you say that, because for the book, I wrote a book with a bunch of people, but I definitely recorded my chapter for the book in the closet. I did. I went into the closet because to do an Audible book, you have to, oh my gosh, like if you're going to read your own Audible book, let me just tell you, friends, it's something else. Anyway, yeah, I did that in my closet as well. Okay, so we've talked about a little bit about equipment. Let's talk about content real quick and what you should do. You talked about having guests, not having guests. I do, a bi-weekly podcast in my office that I just do by myself. But then for Social Media Breakfast, which by the way, I never thought of as a podcast until recently, we've been doing this with guests forever. So how do you choose? Like, why would you have guests and why would you not?
Yeah. So, one of the things when you talk about format, if you're doing a solo cast versus a guest based podcast format, one of the things you have to think about is the fact that you're kind of outsourcing your authority. So we talk about the base layer of doing this is about building your own authority. So if you're just hosting other people and you're never contributing to the conversation, that can be problematic because people won't get to see your authority as well. So one, if you're going to do a guest-based podcast, you want to make sure that you're able to have a conversation back and forth with your guest in a way that helps build their authority, but also yours. So that brings into the question of who would I bring on and why? One, if you're thinking about it in terms of business development and who you're trying to build out your network at scale. So there's a couple things. Who are your referral partners? Who are the people your customers come to before they come to you? Who are the people in your ecosystem that you'd like to connect with? This is a great value-driven way to have a conversation with them, a great 30-minute conversation that if you really think about it, how often do we get to do that with people, right? So when you look at the guesting profile, think about it like your LinkedIn web. LinkedIn tells you first degree, second degree, third degree connections. And when we think about guest personas, that's what we start to build out is who is on the local level, national level, global level that you want to connect with in your industry or based on the topic or subject matter of your podcast and start building out your guest profile that way. And then I think the other piece of that is just when it comes to creating shows, we often say we're the champion for the audience. You can never forget that the whole reason you're doing this is for the person on the other side listening. So who you're bringing on needs to respect their time, needs to be great at what they do. Don't hop on the mic and chat for 30 minutes about what you had for breakfast because you're taking someone's time. And so when you think about the structure and who you're bringing on, think about it in terms of would this person bring value to the other person listening? Is what we're talking about bringing value to the person listening? And if not, if this is just, hey, we're getting together, we're kikiing a little bit. If we're talking about business dev podcast, right? If you're doing a consumer-based podcast, it's a little bit different. But I just challenge you to think about that when you're inviting people on your podcast. Is this really helping the other person on the other end?
No, that's great. You have something to add to that?
Probably just our story. Because we practice what we preach. So when we first started our business, I mean, everything was self-funded. Like we sold our house and probably had about 6 to 8 months of runway, right? And got down to the last 2 months. And then we started to say, oh, we need to probably do what we're telling other people to do. So, starting a new business, one of the things that you have to do is build relationships. And you don't have that authority. People don't know you yet. So we used the podcast initially as a relationship builder. So I wanted to talk to a lot of the biggest CMOs, and even CEOs in Houston. So I took a swing at it. I started a podcast that wasn't even really a podcast at the time, and started inviting people on it for the first 10 episodes, no podcasts. When I say some of the biggest CEOs in town, biggest venture capitalists in town, biggest oil and gas executives came to this tiny 100 square foot room that they were sweating in and recorded a podcast. I said, okay, we got something here, because not only does this work for us, this will work for other people who are trying to build their authority. Because you can do a lot of forms of media. You can write a book. You can start your own solo thing talking into a camera, but people don't know you. And, I struggled with that for, like I said, the first 6 months, tried everything, tried cold calling, LinkedIn. They get that stuff all day. So I had to have something I could exchange of value. And I was like, what is value? What is value? I'll give them anything. What is value? And when you have something like a podcast, a medium to bring someone on, they see value in that so that they can build their authority. And what would happen, last thing is they would share the content to their audience. So they would expose me to their audience, and then the inbound started to come. Hey, can I be on your show? I'm like, yeah, sure. But again, when I saw that happening, I said, this is something that is going to help a lot of people. It helped us in a really, really tough time, like driving back and forth to Austin in our truck, to interview some of the biggest people in Texas. And that's what started the snowball. And that's how we built our process to make this work for everyone.
I mean, I think that's great. So I agree with that 100%, because that's the other question I was going to ask is, how do you build an audience for your podcast? So we're talking about like, okay, I'm alone here in my closet recording, like who's going to listen to this? I think there's a lot of like a syndrome where we're like, we're not going to be able to do this. And who's going to listen to me anyway? So who would think that are in here? Let me know. Anybody thinking that out in the audience? Okay, I know people do. I mean, we do. So how do you get an audience?
Yeah, I think Ray hit on one of the biggest things. Why the interview-based podcast is such a popular format is because of audience share. So when you don't have authority, you borrow authority from other folks. And because of the way that social media is built, when you post that co-collaborative or partnership-based content, it shares. This is a perfect example of this. Cami is hosting a great event. She invited us, who's an authority in our space, on, and we in turn are sharing that with our audience. And there's 3 or 4 people in the room here who I know are here because they're in our network. And that network effect of finding like-minded people whose expertise coalesces with yours, and that's really the way you start to audience build. So when it comes to guesting, I always look at, does this person have an audience, and are they active on at least 1 to 2 core channels? Because what good does it do you if you sat down and you produce this together and it goes nowhere? And I do want to add in, that's not only social media channels or followers. Does this person have an email list? Because I guarantee that email list of 1,000 people that they've nurtured very well will convert or faster than someone who has 80,000 followers but never talks to anyone. So I want to caution you against that too. So building an audience, largely when you don't have one in the beginning, is audience share. It's audience sharing, and that's where the strategy of who you invite on, what comes from. The other thing is distribution. So a lot of times people come and, they want to be on all the things. And the reality is, do you have the resources to be on all the things well? And if you don't, then what we're going to say is taper that back and find 1 to 2 core channels that you can ace, that you are showing up A1 on, that you are active on every day, that you have the bandwidth to be on every week, and build from there first. One of those being an earned channel and one of them being an owned channel, right? So like your website, your newsletter, etc. Once you start audience building, you get your first little 10 listeners, 15 listeners, 100 listeners, start asking for feedback. That's how you find out more of what's resonating and what you should do more of and what you should do less of. From the right people as well. Are these the people you wanted to attract in your space? Mom's going to give me her feedback all the time, and I love it. But mom's not my customer, my referral partner, right? I want to make sure that who I'm getting feedback from. And I think you can do that, 1, by asking people for feedback, but 2, social listening as well. There's other people in your space who are already doing content very well, whether it's video, audio, social. Go look and mine their comments and see what the feedback and questions that people are asking. That will help you understand very quickly how to resonate with your audience, because if they have the same audience, then you're hoping to bring some of that in, right?
Yeah, I love that. Borrowing the when you don't have authority, borrowing other people's authority and seeing what other people are saying about that is really important. That being said, so we're building our audience, we're pulling it together, we're starting to work. One of the things I've done, just as an FYI, we live stream to like several channels. So we're using StreamYard. Some people use Riverside. There's a lot of different tools out there to get things out. So do you want to talk a little bit about how you do that? How do you distribute it?
So the cool thing about podcasts is it still sits on this archaic RSS feed. So what that means is you're able to upload your podcast to one spot and it'll go up to like 30 different directories. So a directory is like an Apple Podcast or a Spotify, and even YouTube, which is one of the top runners out there right now. So distribution actually from the, you know, standpoint of actually just uploading and putting it out there is fairly easy. Getting the momentum behind it is a little bit, you know, more difficult. So you can, while you can distribute it, you know, fairly easy, you still need to have some type of strategy behind creating what we would call social media clips from your podcast. So cutting up that long form content into micro content, you know, and then uploading it to, you know, in our case, YouTube Reels are huge right now, and then we'll upload it to a LinkedIn. So if you combine all of that, that will be your total viewership for that podcast. So distribution really looks like a lot of different things. You kind of got to pick one platform and stick to that platform until you see the growth and momentum, and then move to another platform. I would recommend, if you're just starting out, depending on your business, let's just say YouTube and LinkedIn, and let's just stay in those ballparks.
Yeah. So that being said, I know you do a lot of the work on the social media, Sarah. So could you tell me how you get all those clips together and get them out? Like what's your process right now for getting that done?
Yeah. So a lot of people think you sit down and you record this long form thing and then you go pick out the gems after. But I'm gonna tell you the secret. The best people do not do that. They pre-engineer that. So we talked about pre-production, and that is the step that so many people skip, and it's the most important step, because that is where you're sitting down and getting the gems from that person or from that conversation, and you're unearthing them ahead of time and engineering questions and structure to help elicit those moments and that content. So we like to say our thumbnail, like going into an episode, we already have our thumbnail in mind, our title in mind, specific like ideas of what clips are going to pop based on how we engineered and created a conversation. And so that is one way that you actually pick out those clips. And then obviously, man, we live in the best time ever. The technology that we have is so phenomenal. Cammie just mentioned StreamYard. It's like you upload in one place and you can distribute across 4 or 5 platforms. Same thing with the RSS feed, right? And so when you think about distribution, think about getting more out of less. Like, how could I do, if I could only pick one platform, how could I get this to 4 or 5 places? And on the social side, how would you pick out where to put those social clips? What platform is your audience on? That is your platform. I don't care if you like Instagram. If your people are on LinkedIn and on Twitter, that's what you need to master. If your audience, YouTube tends to be one that works across B2B and B2C very well. And here's the reason. One, just eyeballs in general. YouTube has the largest podcast audience, believe it or not, over all audio podcasting platforms. YouTube has the largest eyeballs. Why? Who owns YouTube? Google, since the advent of the internet. So anything that you can put that's in that ecosystem is going to you're going to do better and well, because data and distribution. So I think,
and short form video there is like really taking off right now.
Yeah.
Because of course they see TikTok nipping at their heels, just like everybody did, but they have like the power to make that go a little bit further. I've just been noticing, and now that TikTok is being kind of like, we're not going to let certain creators on, everybody's like flooding over to YouTube right now.
Yeah, you can interlink on YouTube, and the power of short form versus long form, I just want to say this on the social content side, is testing at scale. If you put out 5 clips, 10 clips or whatever from one show, there's going to be 1 or 2 that do better than the others. That lets you know what resonated, and then you double down on those things. So people always come and say, well, what if I want to do ads, or what if I want to do, why would you do that if you don't know what's working? So the first thing is, I'm going to go back to that feedback place, putting out your content on your platforms, let people and audience tell you what resonates, and then double down and develop in that area. So you're not spinning your wheels and just putting out content for the sake of, I think this is cool, but to serve, again, back to being that audience champion.
That's great. And YouTube, just for a minute about that, even if you only do YouTube, right now, YouTube allows you to turn whatever video podcast you're putting out there into an RSS feed.
Yep.
Yes.
It's crazy. All you have to do is turn it on. It's insane.
Yes.
And that makes you searchable, which is the big thing when you talk about why you would distribute there and where. It's search. So if your podcast is if you're putting up videos on YouTube and they're not classified as a podcast, you're not going to show up in search when people are searching for podcasts. So the labeling of that is super important on the distribution side.
That was really powerful. That was money, guys, just right there. Okay, so moving along on that, because honestly, this is a big one for us. And we know we're going to hear it because you guys work with executives all the time. What is the ROI of podcasting? Have we heard that before? What is it?
Yeah.
This is you, Ray.
Yeah, it's been a question I've been having to answer in the hot seat for the past, 7 or 8 years. Sometimes it's in a board meeting. But we engineered that in from day one. We engineered ROI from day one, from the first relationship that you built. So ROI can happen on the first episode. Now, it depends on what you want that ROI to be and how you perceive value. Value for me was the authority build and the relationship and the potential that, I would say out of those 10, 8 either became clients or sent me a client at that same level. So the economic drivers for a podcast in the B2B space and primarily in the business space is going to be through the relationship. That's the fastest, that's the quickest. And then the second, I would say, is if it's a customer relationship, I would say the partner relationship is second. And then lastly, what you most commonly hear is the monetization through, let's just say, streams. While you will get pennies on the dollar starting off, it is something. But it's not very much when you're first starting off. I would rather explore partnerships. And we have one customer, they've been with us for, I would say, 7 years. And they've done about 4 episodes and they've never paid a dime. They've always gotten a sponsor, 4 seasons altogether. So 4 seasons, roughly about 6 episodes each, and they've never paid for an episode. So you can partner with different organizations and get ROI from day one that way, because a lot of people want to create a podcast, but they don't have the people or the team or the resources. So they'll fund you if you put their logo on the podcast. And I'm talking, they had no audience. So that's
really great. So could you talk a little bit about seasons? Because you just said the word seasons, and I want to talk about that right now, because I think one of the really scary things about podcasts is you're going to get started, and then every week you have this thing to do that becomes a millstone around your neck. How do we get over that, Sarah?
Yeah, don't lock yourself into something you can't commit to. This is a long-term strategy. So when people say, I'm thinking about starting a podcast, my next question to them is, are you committed to this strategy for the next 3 to 5 years? If your answer is no, or I'm not sure, then I'm going to say you don't get into this because you're looking for get quick, get famous, get whatever fast. And that is not the strategy. Audience building does not happen in 3 months or 6 months or 12 months. It happens over time. Now, when I say that, that doesn't mean that you're coming out with a weekly podcast every week. That means, if I approached it from that mentality, I would probably say I could do 1 a month. Once you put that timeline out, then people start their expectations start to become more realistic. And so, one, don't lock yourself into a format that you can't keep up with that goes to resources. And then 2, there is a strategy to seasonality. So if you think about how we consume media, right, and television shows and things like that, we're already pre-wired for this like seasonal format. So then media has just grown and is an extension of that. So there's a strategy to, if your business has seasonality, maybe doing seasons makes a lot of sense for you because you can do this podcast before your high time and that helps fuel your sales. So that might be a reason why you think about it. If for us, we were doing it for business development. So the scale and doing it weekly was really important because we needed the results quicker. So we had to do weekly podcasts because we needed the results quicker. That might be a reason why you would scale it up. So I think just thinking about what you can do consistently. The customer that he was talking about, they're such a great example because they were both entrepreneurs and they were very clear they didn't have a lot of time. So what we started with them is seasonal, only 6 episode seasons. They did that consistently for 3 years. And now fully funded consistently. Now we'll go once a month now. They didn't say, yes, we're fully funded, let's go in twice a week, 4 times a week. No, they've stepped it out methodically, because from that 3 to 5 year vision, they've grown. They just hit, I think, over 10,000 downloads on their last season. Again, they've never paid a dime. Their authority has been built. They've forged a great relationship. And I think all these things are possible when you're realistic about what you can commit.
That's so helpful. I really do think that, because I think about it too. Do they, this is a question because we talked about batching, but if you did a season and you batched all 6 episodes, and then release them all at the same time, even, or like drop them one by one, you could have people like binging your content.
Yes, we recommend seasonal recording for time's sake, but a lot of our executives, they're giving us about an hour to an hour and a half per show. That's all they got at best. So what we try to do is pair it with something that's already working. So they know conferences are working. So we're like, either we'll call it a media retreat, we'll get an Airbnb near the conference where all of the big players are at, and we'll pull them off, kind of sidebar them either at the conference sometime, just a mic like this going around talking to people, or we will, like I said, do the Airbnb where we'll shuttle guests over to the Airbnb. So we call them media retreats, and they love that because they can get a lot of content, not just the podcast done there, but their whole team is there, marketing team, PR, and we're knocking out 8 to 10 episodes.
One comment on that, as you think about that though, because this comes up with format a lot. Some people want to do that really timely news format. I want to report on something that's happening now, and you need to strategically think about that and how that impacts how you record. When you're batching, it needs to be things that would be evergreen, or that 6 months from now, 12 months from now would still ring true. So just want you to consider that, because a lot of people, especially in the social media landscape, it's like, I want to do, news you can use now. And it's like, you really got to think about the runway of that content strategically. So I just wanted to throw that.
I love that. So if you want to do news you can use now, there's a couple of ways you can do that though. Like you could leave a hole in your lineup on that, or do like the short form video and put that out as the news you can use, but then use the podcast as the backup for the whole like topic, I guess you could say. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I like.
Sorry, we're strategizing up here, guys.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about stuff.
Doing it.
I like that format. I like. I think there's always, because we're social by nature. This that's why TikTok took off, right? Because this is just like, this is normal people in their house. We don't have all the lights. We don't have all the camera. And I think there is a place for content like that for every business that helps people see you're human, and that works really well. The other thing is you have the power of dynamic ad insertion too, which at a a more.
Could you say what that is exactly? Because people don't.
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
and how does that work? And where do you put your podcast? Where do you do that?
Yeah. So YouTube actually just released dynamic. So what dynamic ad insertion is whenever you're listening to a podcast, you'll randomly hear an advertisement, right? And you're like, where did that come from? So basically that's already pre-programmed. Those are media buys that people did to have them plugged into your podcast. So Spotify, most podcast platforms will pay podcasters royalties for allowing those advertisements. However, in your space, what you also need to recognize is those are your advertisement slots. So you also, as an independent podcast or media platform, can sell those spots. And why you would want them dynamic versus burned in is for timeliness. So podcasting isn't necessarily linear. How often do you go back and watch a video that's super old because the subject matter that you were searching was relevant, right? So dynamic ad insertion allows the whatever is being put in that spot to be relevant, because it'll change out across all episodes, not just that one episode. So that's why when you're watching on television and you see an ad and you're like, how did they know I was looking at Hilton Americas yesterday? It's because obviously there's pixels and things in there. So
right, and the ads that are coming down are coming to you, not to the advertiser. The podcast is not pulling. It's not pulling because of the podcast. It's pulling because of the people who are watching the podcast. So my ad may be different than Sarah's ad, may be different than your ad out there. So that's really important to know.
So yeah, YouTube allows dynamic ad insertion, and so does Megaphone with Spotify. So if you're looking at something like that and you're wanting to add that into your monetization model, those are two really great places to think about.
And another thing I've heard a lot of podcasts doing is putting their own ads in, like inserting their ads in the middle. So what's good about that is even if you're too small yet to qualify for some of these programs, you can just put in your own little ads, and that conditions your audience to be ready for that whenever it does come.
We always say that you're the first funder and advertiser on your podcast. You should
Correct.
absolutely put an advertisement. And what that also does is it allows you to show potential advertisers what you can do. You're your first use case. So this is how, this is how our advertisements could look or sound. Is that something of interest to you? So that's I
and
think
this is the results I got from this ad or whatever.
This is how many people listened all the way through. This is creatively what I can do. That's your first use case for actually getting other people to buy advertisements.
So how do you get an RSS feed? Yeah, we're going to let Ray talk about that. How do you do that?
So, if you looked at an RSS feed, it would look just like a
wall.
pages,
it's a wall of code.
A wall of code. It just don't do it. So there's these platforms like Megaphone or Libsyn. We use Megaphone. I would recommend using something like even Spotify for podcasters, or Anchor. There's different Podbean. There's
Anchor, Libsyn. It's just LY. That's the old, but oldie but goodie.
Yes. So Libsyn is what we actually started on. They've probably been around the longest, I want to say. But if just search podcast hosting platform, so that is some of the core platforms we use.
And those are different costs, right? So there's a little bit of money involved in that.
Costs. Like Sarah mentioned, dynamic ad placement is kind of what really determines that cost and the amount of data that you can see. So we use Megaphone because we have to report on a lot of data, and we do a lot of dynamic ad placement as well. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially with executives. They're going to want to see the numbers.
Yes.
That's fair, but there's cheaper ways to go. Like Podbean is not that expensive.
$5 to $15 per month is where it would range on average.
And then that would be distributed. Once it goes on there, where does it distribute from there?
So you can go to, don't quote me, but roughly about 20 to 30 platforms from one podcast hosting platform.
Oh, that's really great.
Yeah.
The
only thing I was going to say is when you're looking for your podcast hosting platform, make sure that you look to see if it's IAB certified. So IAB, it's basically the accreditation on the podcasting side. And what it makes sure is that the data that you're getting is cleaner. So there's standards that those platforms had to certify through. And what that does is it deduplicates the data. So like say Sarah picks up, listens to the podcast, puts her phone down, picks it up, continues to listen. IAB is not going to count that as 2. It's going to count it as 1. And so Libsyn even has a great feature where you can kind of toggle it back and forth and see the difference in that data. And so you want an IAB certified platform. So I know Podbean is one, Spotify is, but there's several. Just when you're picking a hosting platform, there are free ones that also are IAB certified. So just look at that extra layer so that the data you're getting is clean.
Yeah, and so it's trusted.
Yep.
It's a trusted data platform. So that's being great. So I'm going to get a little bit of free consulting here. Do you mind? So when I go live here and we do it on StreamYard and it goes out to LinkedIn, to Facebook, to YouTube. By the way, follow us on all the platforms. We're Social Media Breakfast on every platform, including Instagram. Thank you. And actually, make sure you guys take a picture today and tag us on Instagram so that we can share your content, so we can get this out. But what do I do then? I mean, I have now a live stream and it's on the back end of StreamYard. It's on YouTube. What do I do to turn that into a podcast from there?
Yeah, so you have to, if you were taking this long form video live stream, you then need to extract the audio and post-produce it and upload it on your audio distribution platform. Now, I'm going to caution people against just thinking you can just take whatever webinar or thing you did without considering what that sounds like on just audio. Like if you're pointing out, look at my blue socks, nobody on audio can see your blue socks. So just think about those type of things when you're going from one format to the other. So you would extract the audio. It's the thing I love about podcasting. It just like video podcasting. You have long form video, take the audio, extract it, create a transcript from this long form and make it a blog, a super blog where you reimpose the long form video. You have your external links to whatever you want them to follow you on, find you on, product you want them to see. And then from this live stream, you should create clips out of it. You should create clips out of all these little quotables that we talked about and these tips, and you should put those all out online and then see which ones hit and then repurpose, put those back in your content schedule for the next, 30, 60 days and continue to build that flywheel on your content. People have asked us, like, how are you guys so consistent and how are you putting out content every day? What happens the first 30 to 60 days of doing it is a lift. It feels like a lot. It's a commitment. But then what happens is that starts to fuel your content flywheel, because there's 4 to 5 posts that did really well in that first 30 to 60 days. And I plug those back into our calendar and rewrite them a different way and talk about them deeper. And now when I'm starting that next, 4th month or 5th month, now I already eventually get to the point where I have 15 posts because I know they did really well, or those clips did really well. So I think you just need to create, you go from long form, audio, video, long form and short form, and written content. That would be.
No, that's really helpful, guys. I know that was a lot, but write it down, because that's a really good flywheel that you have there, and you can have, there's tools for that too.
Yeah, and I think one thing to think about is when we do a podcast, we have associate producers in the room that are picking out those clips in that moment. We try to always eliminate as much post-production as possible. So if you can have someone in the room, whether it's an assistant or anyone, picking out the clips, picking what to take out, so you can kind of eliminate that post-production piece of it and having to go through the content after you've already done it again. That's been the game changer for us. Even as a post-production company, we want to be as efficient as we can with time. So.
No, that's great. And we use Opus Clips. I'm going to be honest. You upload your video into the Opus Clips and it picks things for you and it tells you like how likely it is to be viral. And it's not always right, but you can adjust it in there and it does that work for you. We also, with StreamYard, when it goes up, we can download it as audio alone. So it'll extract it for us. So that's good. But then there's that post-production where you have to listen and make sure you remove things. And I think that's the place where I'm stumbling at the moment.
I would say Riverside is also a great platform for recording long form or, chopping it up and things like that. And just so you know, you all signed up to be our associate producer today, because I'm definitely going to ask you what resonated after this and that audience feedback side of things. But yeah, you should always be asking people what resonated. And
I'm going to open it up to questions right now. And while I do, who has a question? Okay, yeah. Hold on. We're going to take your microphone and we'll share mine. While I'm getting that question over there. Ooh, I'm sorry. We'll get you. I promise you. I'll come to you in a minute. Today I'm going to this conference. It's called Speakfest. It's about zombie podcasts. So a lot of people start a podcast and they never finish them. They have 3 episodes and then whatever. I'm really excited about this conference. I'm actually leaving from here and going over there and speaking at this conference. And I'm talking about how to automate some of what I just talked about, what we talked about today. But interestingly, that was on our thing to talk about too. So that's one of my questions as well. But what's the first one over here?
Hi, I'm Donna Durbin, and I teach accent reduction to bilingual speakers. And I have a YouTube channel that's grown organically. I'm proud to say 6,700 people.
Wow.
And, but I was really curious. The question was, as you said, you can turn any YouTube video into RSS feed. How does that happen? Because I post, that's my channel that I post most often on.
Yeah, so you have to turn, there's a setting in YouTube where you have to actually turn it on as a podcast. And that basically creates your podcast feed within YouTube, but you also can redirect your RSS feed to, do you currently have an audio podcast? Or no, it's just a YouTube channel. Yeah, it's just a video. So you can't just turn a short form video into a podcast. It's going to make you create a playlist and turn on that setting in YouTube and designate those as podcasts, because it doesn't want just anyone creating any video and turning it into a podcast playlist. So it's a feature in YouTube. You have to turn it on, and then it's going to have you designate what your podcast is. There definitely is a YouTube video on it.
I'll do it. So just say go into YouTube and type, how do I turn my playlist into a podcast? And I promise you, there's going to be at least 6 people that pop up and tell you step by step so you can watch it, because I know that that's helpful to you, how to do it. Yes.
Hi. So 3-part question. I'm sorry, but other than less frequent episodes and limited availability of executives, how is B2B podcasting different from B2C podcasting? And what should a client specifically look for when hiring an agency like yours to assist with podcasts for a B2B entity, specifically professional services like lawyers, whom I work for, accounting firms, architects, and engineers? Second part to that question, which is related, is you mentioned the importance of distribution and knowing which social media your audience is in. So do you need to work with a social media agency like the one that's hosting us today? Or do you need to work with, or is that something that the agency, you should expect that your podcasting agency can help with that aspect? And then third part question is, because you said, hey, you're your best, you should insert an ad for your own, your services inside your podcast. And do you need to work with an agency, an ad agency to do that? Or can you expect your podcasting agency to be able to help you with that?
Those are good questions. It's a loaded one. So I'm going to take the first one, which is what would be the difference between B2B and B2C? I think one of the big differences is scale. For example, you look at a Joe Rogan podcast, millions and millions and millions of listeners. In B2B, you do not need millions and millions and millions of listeners. You need 100 of the right people, 100 very concentrated. These are lawyers, judges, whoever in my industry who are listening to this and see me as the authority, because the same thing is they have that network. So that's one of the big differences, is how you would apply this strategy looks different in B2B than you would on a consumer side. On a consumer side, there's a monetization model that's there. There's just in term, most of those podcasts that you're seeing that have all those views, there's tons of ad money dumped into them to get them to that viewership, because their money model is based on advertisement. So they need more eyeballs to see this content to please their advertisers to keep the money model going. That's not what we're doing in B2B with podcasting. It's built on relationships, network, and authority. So those are the differences in the strategy and how that would change which platforms you go on, who you're inviting on, and what the frequency, cadence, campaigns that you would attach to would be. So that's the first part of the question. The second question was social media. So we call ourselves a full service podcast agency because we dabble in everything from the launch of that, the strategy part of it, to the actual production of it, and the post-production and the distribution, the social media distribution of it. Now, what I will say is we do that for your podcast. We do not manage the entire social media channel. That is where you really would want an agency who manages the entire brand channel, because the multimedia strategy attached to podcasts is just one piece of the pie. It's one piece that you should make sure plugs into the overall strategy. So you either have an agency or there's an internal comms person that typically we're working with as the agency to make sure that we're all humming together in the same strategic direction. And then what was the third? Yes. So your podcast agency, if they're full service like us, will help with the insertion of it, the technology of it, and also the crafting of those particular pieces that would go in. It is not uncommon, though, that there is a lead agency already in the mix because of what we just talked about, who will have a say on the messaging of it. And oftentimes we're helping execute that vision. But a full service podcast agency would have the bandwidth to do that based on the tech infrastructure and just understanding how to record it.
I have a question about ad buys. I know that like we're entering midterms soon, and a lot of candidates, especially in the city, will buy as much media as possible, humanly possible. And I know that for a lot of our nonprofits, they've always attracted candidates and wanting to like communicate with our bases or our audience. If that does happen, like long term, where candidates like, I would like to buy ad space, even though you're a 501c3, would the way to get around it be approach everyone else on that ballot and say, hey, so and so is buying ad space with us, would you also like to buy ad space with us, so that you could maintain your 501c3 status?
Yeah,
How-
that's a
yeah.
legal question.
Yeah, okay. I'm not a lawyer, and nor do I play one on TV. But what they're talking about is actually opening up your podcast to have any advertisement drop on there. Like you personally, like putting an ad into your space, that's a sponsorship, and there's like very picky rules on sponsorships, especially for. I would not touch that with a 10-foot pole. I mean, just from a crisis communication perspective. So their ads may drop into your podcast, like just because it's on a dynamic basis. You know,
Yeah.
if you open up dynamic, I mean, they're trying to reach your audience, it might drop in there, but you aren't the one. I mean, I get advertisements from politicians all the time on all kinds of different things I'm listening to, and I know that the thing I'm listening to is not sponsoring or endorsing is really the word,
Right.
that politician. So I'm like, okay, you know, I mean, I'm not holding it against them. So that I be careful there.
Be
No, the answer
careful,
is
yeah.
no. I would say. I mean, personal. I wouldn't do that. I mean, you can, but I wouldn't do it.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having us. My question was, I didn't really hear much talked about the subject matter of your podcast. I know we spoke on authority. Huge challenge I had. Cammie and I, we were at another event a couple weeks ago, and I had a huge breakthrough. Like it was about a week. I have a talk show. It's not a podcast. It's like a sit down Oprah Winfrey type of talk show on personal growth and personal transformation and all of that. And I went from having like major studio production during COVID to me in a closet. So had to chisel it down a little bit. But a huge issue that I had was I bought the equipment, new camera, new wardrobe, lost weight, like, okay, I'm ready. And then I got up to like start talking, and the people's podcasts and pages, like Instagram pages that I was modeling after, I noticed those that had the most success were, they kept a theme. Like every topic was the same. And when it came to me, I didn't have one. Like I wrote out like 20 topics, and then I pre-recorded them, and I ran out of stuff to talk about. So I had that breakthrough 2 weeks ago. My question is, from you guys' perspective, how have you guys helped a client go through that? Or what are some other unforeseeables or just knowledge you can drop on like what I have in store? Like I'm putting together a whole focus group. I have a whole thing to stop me from running out of things to talk about. But when it comes to, it's not a guest podcast. It's just going to be me talking to the camera, and we evolve from there. What's the process with keeping the content, like the subject matter, on topic and consistent?
Yeah, that's a great question. It comes into the pre-launch phase that we were talking about. And in that pre-launch phase, you're thinking about the angle and the white space that you take up in that space. So the personal development space specifically is very broad. So we go through this lengthy process of what differentiates your show. Like really deep, both from a focus group. I love that you're doing that. So like kudos to you for doing that, because that is a big step. Like what is missing in this space? And over you'll think we think we know. But you need to talk to, I've said it a couple times, you need to talk to the people you're trying to serve, because they will tell you, I listen to 10 personal development podcasts and all of them talk about this, but no one talks about X. Once you start listening in that focus group, you're going to start to see a theme come up. Oh, this is what's missing in this conversation. Okay. The next thing is that 3 to 5 year vision. So when I put that number out there, what it's going to do is stop you from pigeonholing yourself into something that is so narrow, you run out of room to grow. So angle and structure are super important to this conversation. First place, unearth it from your audience. What do they want? Second is think about the format of your show to a T. How can I embed places where this will be dynamic? Is that a question? I'll give you an example. Question from the audience. How many shows have you seen that always have a question from the audience? Why? It's a segment. It's a segment that is evergreen, that will always grow with the show no matter where it goes, and you always have airtime for it. So you got to think about the structure of it in a dynamic way that's going to help it have longevity. So angle and structure, those are the two places you got to dive deep. There's more there, but
No, that's really cool. And also, just so you know, and it's going through on the screen for those of you who are like, I don't know what I'm going to say. I am doing a brand voice workshop this Tuesday at 10. Like, it's a free thing that I'm doing. It's running by on the screen as you go by. But the brand voice workshop is one way we do that, is like, what is your superpower? Like, what is it going to be? Like, where are you at? And by the way, it also gives you an asset at the end that you can use in LLMs and AI to like when you're putting your stuff together, that it sounds like you, that it is you. So definitely make sure you take advantage of the brand voice workshop. It's coming up on Tuesday, and it's free. And I only do it, like, I should do it more than once a year, but it's like happening once a year right now. So it's, if you want to do it now. So that would be one way. But also having that, I love what you just said, because I've heard this from a lot of people, have a lot of hooks. Like a hook inside, like you hear about having a hook inside of a short form video inside of your podcast. Every segment should be a hook, right?
Yeah. So I would think of a podcast as 3 podcasts in one. Try to make it 3 podcasts in one so that you can have different segments that serve different objectives. So when we sit down initially to develop a podcast, which is the most critical part, because we're thinking through how can this podcast, one, serve multiple purposes, but also if we don't think about that first, then that question and the Q&A piece isn't even in there and embedded in there. So I'll use this as an example. We're listening to the questions now, and then I guarantee you on the way home, Sarah and I are going to talk about all the questions that were asked and talk about and link them to the questions we've been asked over the past month, and then say, we need to talk about this on the show. So it's constantly saying, how can we better serve our audience and stay up to date? Google Trends is another thing we used. Panels, we look at conferences and see what type of panels they're doing. So
this is going to be the last question, because we are at the end here, but here. Oh, no.
He's going around the camera.
Yeah. Okay. Of course he is.
Where do we find your show?
Yeah, so it's Owned and Earned. That's the name of it. We're obviously in the owned media business, right? But you own your authority first, and then you earn the rest that comes with it. That's the concept, right? The peso model is really, it's kind of a play on words. Peso model is known in the media space and marketing space. So it's Owned and Earned. And then of course our company is Speakerbox Media. We have a great studio downtown, and you can record there and not post-produce, or you can post-produce there. So we really believe in quality. So everything in our studio is top tier when it comes to quality. And we have a lot of people who come in and they're like, hey, I'm going to record my base layer season here. I'm going to get that beautiful 6K, 4K, and then I'm going to take it and go post-produce it myself. So that's completely okay with us. So we're both a studio and an agency available to you guys here downtown.
No, it's great. And I've been in the studio, I can say, so that was great. And it's a beautiful place. And you do feel like I've arrived on the scene here. When you come into their studio, it's beautiful.
Yes, Cami was our first episode. We felt like we had to do that because we've known her for so long. And she's been such a staple in the social media community. But yes, like she said, it is your studio for the day. People bring their social person, they bring their makeup person. Sometimes it's a sister, a cousin, somebody doing iPhone content, whatever it is. But getting the most out of your media day to get your content out there is how we approach it, whether it's on the B2B side or B2C side. It's an owned asset that we want to help you strategically develop and get the most out of your time, your money, and the effort that you put forward to do something like it.
Yay. So guys, give Sarah and Ray a hand, please. Thank you guys so much. It was such great information. I know it was a lot of information. And by the way, this is live streamed and it is on YouTube. So you can go back and re-listen to it there. If you're like, what was it that they said? What was it they had? So follow Cami. It's on my channel. So Cami Chat or Cami Hoyza on YouTube. And it has a playlist. So you can go find the playlist. It's also on smbhou.com. You can grab it there. And what's coming up just really quick is that this month we have one more, actually a couple of more things. We have the Brand Voice Workshop on Tuesday. That's coming up on the 15th. If you're thinking about writing a book, Madeline and I are going to be talking about how to start thinking about putting your book out there and using AI to help you like work through the process. We had 200 episodes of a podcast and we're turning that into a book. So we are using that. It's called Communities That Convert. So we're talking about how to build your online community. And so we're going to be talking about how we're putting that book together and how I also helped 36 authors put together a combined book and promoted it internationally. So we'll talk about that and how we used AI to do that. Then next month we'll be here November 14th. We're always here the second Friday of every month. And we're going to be connecting with Cup of Joey. I don't know how many of you go to Cup of Joey from time to time. Yes. So we're doing a combined event with Cup of Joy. And I don't know all the fun things we're going to do, but we're going to do some fun things because if I'm involved, we're doing something fun. And then we're going to do the gift of guidance in December. I talked about that at the beginning. We're looking for volunteers for the gift of guidance where we're helping 10 nonprofits with their social media. You can come. And in fact, that's what we ask you to do. Even if you're like, I can't be a table leader, I can't be a judge, I can't really do that. Just show up and sit around a table with one of the nonprofits and you're going to learn a ton about how to do strategic communications for your brand just in that one thing. We've been doing it for a really long time. How many people have done this before in this room? So look around you, see the hands. If you have questions, make sure you talk to the people you see. It's a really great event, right, guys? The ones that have done it? Yes? Yes. Okay. It is. It's amazing. Everybody leaves in the spirit for the holidays. So make sure that you join us for that. And we also have made an agreement with the ION, and we're going to be here all next year as well. So that's been great. And I also want to thank Impact Hub Houston in the back there who have brought the coffee today. I brought the food today. So thank you for that so much. They've been such a great sponsor of us. So we have many sponsors and I hope that you help us out with that. So take care and have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.